It is Monday, January 11th, 2021. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was yet another non-virtual get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. Doing a little bit of stuff from the ground. From the on the back with somebody on your chest, full mounted position. Not very advantageous to be in. But the movements that we were doing today, me and my partner, we were we were going from that to bumping our opponent forward far enough to be able to turn sideways on them about 90 degrees and bring that leg up and get it on up into a nice leg lock. And I liked that quite a bit. It's something that I still have a lot of trouble with, honestly, because the movement, it's like you're like holding your opponent up in the air for a moment of time, and then you let your leg slip out behind theirs and bring your ankle up to their hip on one leg, and then you keep your other leg pinned to the side of their leg with your foot right behind their knee on the other leg. So it's kind of tough for me to coordinate all of that, and I've had a lot of difficulty with that before, and I kind of expect that I will, at least in the short term, until I start getting more fluid with the movement. But honestly, I really liked it. It felt like when I did get it tight and right, the one or two times that I actually did, it felt really good. Like that was something that I felt like I could pull off on the average day against an average opponent at least. But yeah, like I said, it was a lot of fun. I have the hardest time trying to articulate the totality of all of the movements that we're covering in the 10th planet system, and at least one of the reasons for that is they have really odd names for all of the things that we're doing today. So like, honey hole, or what was another one? Well, butterfly is kind of standard, so that's not it. There's a whole bunch of other weird names that they give to stuff, and it's like, so we shifted from the odd naming to standard jiu-jitsu naming today. Where we were doing ashigurami, which is leg entanglement. And so, it's like, make up your mind, man. Are we going to go by the Japanese names for stuff, or are we going to go by the 10th planet names for stuff? What are we doing here? But anyway, so like I said, it was really interesting, and I would have stayed today for just a short period of time, but I felt like I kind of messed up my knee yesterday. I was out fishing in the lake that I was on. They sucked like, I want to say 3 to 4 feet of the lake out from under me while I was out on my float tube. So while I was able to kick my way out, to the spot that I wanted to fish, when I was coming back in, I literally had to walk my float tube back, and I had to take my swim fins off, and so my feet were sinking down into the silt on the bottom of a lake. And if you've ever experienced that, your feet go down in it like at least 4 to 6 inches every step. And so that puts a lot of strain on your knee, especially when you're like pulling back up. And, if you have any like side torsion or anything like that, or your foot gets stuck, or, just anything like that, it can mess up your knees. And so yesterday when I was out there, I don't know if it was I slipped or something like that, but I kind of tweaked my knee just a teeny tiny, and I don't know that I quote unquote hurt it per se, but certainly made it sensitive. And so I was trying to take it easy, and my training partner kind of reefed on it 1 or 2 times, and it's like, okay, tap 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 tap. You don't need to really get it. I can feel enough strain on it as is that I really don't need you to go for it. But he was very kind, he was very understanding, and fortunately he was disciplined enough that he did back off just a teeny tiny, and he would get it right to where the submission would be. I would tap, everything was fine. And, you know, I really like training with people like that, you know, that are mature enough that they don't have to get every single fucking submission like they're in a competition. You know, they don't have to crank it all the way in there, reef back on your arm, or just choke deep on you, or some shit like that. I mean, they can actually get the fluidity of the movement work on the fluidity of the movement primarily. And then from there, trying to be just a tiny bit more assertive, but just going until you come up to the spot where the submission is going to be. And even going a little bit further, okay, to where your opponent actually does tap. I don't mind that. What I do mind is somebody just like completely reefing on it, you know, and not being really mindful of the fact that your training partner isn't necessarily prepared for you to go all out on them. Now, of course, there is really no excuse there. If you're on the mat, you got to keep in mind that that's what you're there for, is to learn how to fight. But at the same time, there's fighting and then there's training, and you gotta do one before you're really ready for the other. But yeah, so I would have stayed for a little bit of training because my training partner from just drills and whatnot is going to be competing soon. And it's funny, there's these little competitions that are popping up, and I've been seeing them around. And I was talking to one guy, and he was talking like they're actually going to have audiences. And you know, when you put that into the context of where we're at with like UFC and MMA events and boxing events, where they're making them fight in basically a hollowed out auditorium that doesn't have any people cheering, I really feel that's a detriment to the competitors, because at least part of the competition, part of the live competition, is the crowd. You know, the crowd gets you pumped up. The anxiety of being in front of other people, you know, that performance anxiety. I've heard of a number of fighters out there that they throw up every fucking time they compete just because their guts are so knotted up. And I can imagine it because I have competed before, and it's kind of nerve-wracking, at least until it's over. You know, or at least until you get your first round over with. And that was like one of the funny things about the one competition that I did do is, even though he hurt me in the first round, when they asked me if I wanted to do a second round, I'm like, well, fuck it, I'm here. You know what I mean? You kind of just go with it. Whatever. Okay, yeah, I'll do another round. You know, now if you would have asked me that beforehand, if you would have been like, hey, are you up for 2 rounds? Or two separate matches, I've been like, nah. Let's just get number 1 over with and see where we're at. You know, and I don't know if that's just a reflection of my own confidence in my in my abilities at jiu-jitsu, or what. But I do feel like it'll change. Like if I was at the kind of shape that I was, you know, during the beginning of this pandemic bullshit, I think I'd be ready to compete right now. And I think if I were still at that shape and capability, that I might actually be competitive. But I got to get back up there. I'm not quite to competition speed yet. I got at least 10 pounds that I would like to drop before I go fantasizing about doing any competitions. But yeah, so let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And as far as where we're going to start off, I'm feeling like we should be standard here and go for some body count. But again, it's always that challenge of picking exactly the song that I want to start off with. And let's see. I think I want to go with something off of Bloodlust. And yeah, that's a good song. Bloodlust. First Dance. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Overkill with Last Man Standing. Yeah, I gotta tell you, it's funny. I've been posting on YouTube the episodes for my shows for so long that when you try to look up my shows, you actually have to know which ones you're looking for, or some of the material that's associated with it, because it's so old. You know what I mean? Like, if you were to try and look up any of my episodes from like 2015 or 2016, you would have to know something about, like, I mean, you would have to type in 2016, and then you might be able to find it. But they don't even show all the episodes that I've uploaded on there. It's, I don't know, something like, it's a lot. I know that. I've got hard drives full of them, so yeah. Anyway, as far as what we're going to get into today, I hadn't really picked out a lot of stuff. I've been fighting the forces of evil on social media for, I don't know, a couple days now, so so I haven't been paying as much attention to the old cryptosphere as I should, and that's only to one extent. I mean, to the other extent, I'm trading constantly. I mean, that's just a like lifestyle kind of thing now. I don't know. I don't think I ever like fully disconnect from it. You know, even when I'm out fishing or something, a lot of times shit is coming up to my mind. Man, I wonder what Bitcoin's doing right now. So, you know, it's got to be some sort of sickness. I can't say that it's entirely sane, but, you know, it's at least fun, you know? So, I mean, really, who am I to mind that it's just slightly crazy? You know, I mean, we're challenging the foundations of modern civilization here with the idea that somebody like you or me could create a cryptocurrency, disperse it out to the public, they adopt it, they mine it, and then they use it as money. I mean, that's just fucking crazy. It's fucking absolutely crazy. But when you look at it on a purely material front, you understand that, you know, we are coming into a more digital age. More of what you want to buy is digital. And so why shouldn't your money be digital too? And see, I think that we're going into a future where the vast majority of the shit that you buy, sans food, maybe food, maybe we'll get lucky on food for a little while, where we'll actually be consuming biological organisms instead of some weird new protein or nutritional pate or some shit. Anyway, pardon me. That most of what you will buy in the future is going to be at least digital in design, meaning that you'll download the design and then you'll print the fucking thing out. I think that is probably the most likely feature of the future lifestyle. You know, things like VR or augmented reality or any of that shit. I think that's all like maybe space. You know, there's a cost threshold involved with all of this stuff. And so until the benefit of using it exceeds the cost involved, and that includes the technical know-how, because you'll want to know how. Sans all of that, you know, that there's just not a real benefit, per se, of VR yet. Now, this is not to say that there won't be in the future. This is not to say there cannot be in the future. This is to say that currently, we haven't figured out, or at least I don't think we have. I haven't really exposed myself to the technology, but I don't feel a deep enough compulsion to want to adopt it, you know? And so I think until that threshold changes, you know, where there's an actual incentive, there's an actual, like, benefit to using it. Until that comes about, or that the use of it itself would be beneficial for your health. You know, like maybe it makes your eyesight better, or maybe it helps tune the acuity of your hearing or some shit like that. You know, until there's a real benefit, a real physical benefit to using it, I'm not certain that the interest will actually be there. And I'm sure this is much to the chagrin to somebody who envisions that we'll be living kind of like the Matrix in the future, like you go 20, 30 years down in the future, and that we're all going to be plugged in, and we're all going to be supplying power to it through our body heat and all that other bullshit. That's like somebody's vision of the future, or what should be in the future for the vast majority of us, while they get to live on some fucking ivory tower, with them and their friends and shit. Or at least that's like the impression that one's given, or at least me. I get the impression that that's like where they're wanting to try and drive, where like the vast majority of us will live in 8x10 like ISO cubes from the time we're like 10 years old on, or maybe even younger, like 4 or maybe 5 years old, and that that'll be life for us, and we'll just like live in this big old fucking hive of 8x10 ISO cubes, and that'll be human existence. That's so fucking depressing. That whole ideal is so it's like devoid of any kind of hope of the future. I mean, do you sense in that idea or that mimetic any kind of desire to push towards like Star Trek or anything like that? No, there's no motivation to let you leave or let you escape them. No, man. Once you've got that fucking leash around your neck, you just gotta tweak the chain. Gotta tweak the chain. Take your kids. Take your wife. Take anything that means anything to you. I don't know. That's just what I see like as the destination for all this like censorship and shit on Twitter. I'm just offended by that shit. Personally, I've lost at least two accounts on Twitter due to their capricious utilization of their TOS. And I say capricious because it's not at all even. You just have to have a number of people that report you, and it doesn't even really have to be terribly offensive. And they just fucking say, "Oh, you're suspended. You don't get to come back. You don't get to tweet anymore." The whole cyber persona that you've built up on our platform is now gone. And it's one of those things where like before they actually suspended my account, there were a number of groups within crypto Twitter itself, which, by the way, they don't even exist anymore. I'm still there, but they don't exist anymore. And where they would mute me, they would block me, and they would encourage others to block me by default. And I know this because I would look at some threads with a special way of looking at them, and I would be able to see where there's people fucking commenting saying, "Oh, don't listen to that guy, he's a fucking dick," but people that had blocked me saying that shit. So it's like, I'm not a stranger to censorship on social media. It's been a part of my life for a couple years now. But it's only been the last couple years that they've been clamping down harder and harder and harder. And I think this is the message that you all should have been getting with Alex Jones, was that they are taking it upon themselves to curate the narrative that's going on their platforms, to navigate to direct the narrative with what they're showing you, who they're exposing you to, all that other shit. And when you start looking at it that way, it's like, it was cool when it was just casual viewing, and you thought that you had this free span of view and that you're getting to see the whole picture and all that shit. And then you come to find out that no, you've just been fed this like cultured and narrowed down perspective that you actually have to like reach outside the bubble to get beyond it, where you have to be knowing what exactly you're looking for to be able to find things that are outside of your normal realm of exposure. And I find that kind of offensive, honestly. You know, it's like my first experiences of Google were fantastic. It was an awesome tool. Had this thing called Search Within Results. And I'll tell you what, there was not a single fucking thing that I could not find out there. You know, if it had been cataloged out there, if it had a fucking registered DNS or whatever, I would be able to find it. You know, I found some really weird shit doing that too. I mean, I didn't know there was such a thing as Star Trek fanfic, but apparently there is. It's just one of those things that I found while Google was still a real search engine. And I mean, when Yahoo was a real search engine, I found some really exotic shit. Like, I found this one website, and this is back in, like, I want to say, like, 96, 97? It was a long time ago. Anyway, I did this web search, and I was searching for porn, of course, and I ended up happening upon this site, and I was a big time Mac user at the time. So, you know, anything that was related to Macintosh computers just thrilled the shit out of me. All right, and the device that I was using at the time, I think it was like a 200 megahertz processor. I mean, it's kind of weird talking about megahertz with regard to processors these days. But anyway, so it was in, I want to say it was like 200 or maybe 220 megahertz. Really, really kind of sluggish. But I came across this website, and it was XXX Mac Secrets. And what it was somebody had managed to get access to materials concerning stuff that was in Apple's like R&D pipeline. And one of the things was the iMac, and it had not come out yet. But another one that excited me even more was a PowerPC, and this is before they made this transition to from what was it? It was a PowerPC chip, and it was before they went to the G3 series. But anyway, so this PowerPC chip, the low end of it was 800 megahertz. And so now, mind you, that was 4 times as fast as the computer that I was currently using, and that's the low end. The mid-range was a 1 gigahertz processor. I'm like, oh my god, man, what the fuck is a gigahertz? And then the top one was 1.5. But the point being is, that's the kind of shit that, like, if you were looking really, really hard, you would never find that. It doesn't exist out there anymore, or at least I haven't found it. But those were things that were, you know, kind of stashed away that people didn't think that you had access to, because for a while the internet wasn't really used by the general public, at least not for non-nefarious purposes. And, you know, I found all kinds of shit. I think I've talked about it a few times on this show that I came across the pnac.org website. That was something that was completely out in the open. And if you read their manifesto, it described pretty much the United States' foreign policy up to date. And as a matter of fact, is what's going on right now. Same fucking thing. It's still in there. The only thing that was off about the plans was the timeline. That's it. The rest of it, as far as like the content of the plan and the goals concerned and all that shit's it's all laid out. You know, you'd think they had like some mystic seer that was able to divine this shit for them. You know, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how the next, I want to say, like year or so plays out, because a lot of it is similar. There's been some changes, though. And you would expect there to be some sort of contingencies for error and whatnot. But I think that China's China's current flexing is not something that they were really accounting for. And I think what's really interesting about this is that it was necessary to utilize China in order to make a lot of the hardware to get us to where we are as far as, like, being a world player in manufacturing and whatnot, is we've offloaded a lot of our manufacturing to them. Well, they've got a whole different ethos than the United States does concerning intellectual property. If a U.S. company hands a piece of intellectual property to a Chinese business, they're essentially handing it directly over to the Chinese government, because there really isn't a difference between the Chinese business and the Chinese government. And for a long time, it seemed, I want to say until I think I read the first kind of alarm bells concerning this relationship and the difference in reality there, back in early 2000s. Maybe it might have been late 1990s, like 1999 or 2000, where these guys were saying, it's like, you know what? That thing that I saw on the shelf in China, it looks a hell of a lot like the thing that we haven't even released here in the United States. But it's not. It didn't have the same signage. It didn't have the same labels. It's not the same product. But it does the same things. And it's not even released over here. So, what's going on here? And then we started having things where, I think it was a missile guidance system, where the Chinese had basically replaced all of the parts in it with parts that were not mil-spec. They have a certain tolerance expectation in what they call mil-spec, military specifications, right? Well, those are like heat tolerances and tension tolerances and all that other stuff, right? Well, mil-spec hardware is different than consumer-grade hardware. Because it's got to endure several different types of attacks, all kinds of physical damage, so on and so forth, in the conducting of its mission. So it's got to have some survivability there, right? Well, they found out the hard way that this guidance system had hardware in it that was straight off the shelf of Radio Shack. It wasn't mil-spec hardware, basically. But these are like little glitches, okay, that are the product of the fact of this difference in the relationship, the difference in attitude towards manufacturing and whatnot, and so, like I said, the whole relationship itself has caused significant issues here in the United States, and I think that what we're seeing now with regard to the censorship, it's a reflection, I feel anyway, of this relationship becoming to where it's now American businesses that are being controlled by Chinese businesses that are controlled by the Chinese government. And they're fulfilling the agenda of the Chinese government through American businesses. And that's just my feeling. When we're talking about Twitter or Facebook or whatnot, they have relationships with people over there. I think Facebook is in China. I think Twitter is in China. I'm not sure, but I think they are. And that with that comes some expectation of reciprocation on certain things. Anyway, I got this thing here. I want to get into some articles here. And the first one I got is on the IndiaTimes.com. The guy who built the World Wide Web is building a new internet where you control your data. And this is by Gwen DeMello. So no penis. And this is authored on... Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. This guy's obviously not gotten anywhere with this project because this was authored in 2018. Well, I don't know that he got nowhere because I actually went to the website for this thing. Let me get to it. Yeah, interrupt. Let's see here. Guy who built the internet, blah, blah, blah. Be positive. Be possible. Changing the way people connect with their data changes everything. And this is the project that was related to that article. I didn't want to read the article because it was from 2018, and that's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But anyway, this thing, I guess, is the product that they were referring to, or the new internet. And yeah, let's get into this thing. I want to try and find like a white paper or something to it. And let's see. So, company about. Let's do that. The future is still much bigger than the past. That was Sir Tim Berners-Lee. Let's see. Interrupt is delivering Sir Tim Berners-Lee's original vision of a web of shared benefit for everyone. We are a worldwide team of inventors, investors, entrepreneurs, developers, and academics who believe in Sir Tim's vision for the web. Interrupt's technology puts individuals in control of their data, gives organizations new opportunities to create value for customers, and allows developers to thrive in an open marketplace of innovation. Well, let's see here. I'm trying to find an actual white paper. Let's see, solid. Sir Tim Berners-Lee's vision of a vibrant web for all. Solid is the technology for organizing data, applications, and identities on the web. Solid enables richer choices for people, organizations, and app developers by building on existing web standards. Solid's power is derived from the fact that it is based upon open specifications, just like the web. Open specifications mean interoperability across a broad ecosystem. Interrupt's technology aims to help the world leverage the power of Solid, which is why the open source software sits at the core of our company. Our tools help others build their efforts that make the Solid ecosystem stronger. Explore the Solid community, build picture. Let's see how Solid Pods work. Let's see. Users control which entitled entities and apps can access their data. Apps can access rich stores of data from any pods with user permission. Pods store user data in an interoperable format and provides users with permissioning controls. That's kind of interesting. Let's see, partnering with companies to ensure success on Solid, our approach. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get into this thing. It sounded kind of interesting. Supposedly the inventor of the internet is working on some sort of alternative to it. And I think it's an interesting idea, but I don't know. I think that if we just got back to the idea of people providing what services and resources that they desired to according to their conditions. I think if we were to approach it from that perspective, as opposed to having to identify you and having to associate everything to you, I think that determining the level of exposure of your personal identification and whatnot should always be something that's in your control. You know, something that you have a choice in. Anyways, so I'm going to get into this stuff though. I got this thing, it's on CoinDesk. Institutional custody will change retail-oriented crypto. And this is authored on January 7th, 2021 at 8:04 a.m. PST. And this is by Phil Mochin. So yes, penis. The institutions are coming, the herd is arriving, institutional participation in the digital asset market is imminent. As this happens, it's worth considering how the entry of highly regulated financial companies will change the marketplace infrastructure for crypto, which until now has been largely oriented to retail investors. Institutions will have different and higher requirements across the transaction chain, notably in the custody of digital assets. No, they won't. Phil Mochin is the co-founder and head of strategy and corporate development at Coin, an international digital assets custody and settlement platform. Gonna go broke. Digital assets are bearer assets, raising implications for trading and safeguarding, and surfacing considerations for institutional asset managers looking to allocate capital to a digital asset fund. Bearer assets. With a bearer asset, ownership is determined by possession alone. If I hold on to a $10 note, it's mine. If I hold a $300 million bearer bond, it's mine. In the same way, if I hold the private key to a Bitcoin wallet that holds 10 Bitcoin, then it's mine. Probably. We say probably because most bearer instruments are difficult to copy. Various counterfeiting measures have been built into them, such as serial numbers, holographic images, stamps, ultraviolet threads, etc. A private key for a Bitcoin wallet, on the other hand, is simply a string of 32-bit or 32 alphanumeric characters that can be copied with a pencil, an iPhone camera, or a good memory. A $10 note would have to be stolen to be usable, whereas a Bitcoin private key can simply be copied, i.e. stolen. Private keys are therefore the most vulnerable form of bearer asset, and once they have been exposed to a human, it is impossible to prove unique ownership. They may have been copied, and there will be no record of the copy having been made. Quote, one very large crypto fund revealed to me that it holds the private key across 3 bits of paper held by 3 individuals. The safeguarding of these private keys thus becomes a critical issue for digital assets. The original design for a blockchain record of assets is based around a wallet model. The use of the word wallet indicates the security issue. In practical terms, why would you want to store more value in a digital wallet than you would feel comfortable with in a physical wallet? Owners may feel that they have cryptographic security, but do they have physical security? There are numerous examples of people who have been robbed of their digital assets under physical threat. It may be a shock to learn that one very large crypto fund revealed to me that it holds the private key across 3 bits of paper held by 3 individuals. I advise them that for their personal safety, never reveal their methodology again to another person. To illustrate how unsafe it is, perhaps sufficient to say that crypto exchanges in aggregate lose the entire contents of their hot wallets roughly every 6 months. Various technical solutions have emerged with the objective of making the wallet more secure, including MPC technology, whatever the fuck that is. But while reducing the risks, supposedly, these fundamentally don't address the nature of the risk. Robbing $1 billion from a bank remains a high-cost, high-risk exercise. Robbing a Bitcoin owner with $1 billion held in a personal wallet is significantly easier and with much lower risk. Industry implications. The first implication for safeguarding is that the wallet model is inadequate for high value, greater than $1,000. Its design and architecture leave it too vulnerable, and no technological improvements, however innovative, will ever resolve this challenge. Quote, better is never going to be sufficient. Not really. One alternative model is the account structure where a trusted third party takes control of the assets. Right. So instead of waiting for somebody to steal it from you, you just hand it to somebody else and hope that they give it back to you. Trusted third party takes control of the assets and separates the authorization processes from the private key management. This is how a bank works, and it requires trust, regulation, and governance, most of which are anathema to the progenitors of the cryptocurrency world. The second problem arising from the bearer nature of digital assets is proving unique ownership. The only solution is to ensure and prove that no humans ever come in contact with a private key. Given that cold stores, the most common form of long-term storage for digital assets, require humans to move assets across the air gap with the commensurate risk of collusion and poor scalability, it would seem such solutions are unacceptable. A third issue relates to regulatory rules around bearer instruments, which vary by country. In the U.S., any fund of more than $150 million in size is obliged to dematerialize bearer assets and record them on a register of ownership maintained by a custodian. This is why nearly all traded bearer assets are dematerialized into electronic registers normally held by regulated depositories whose records are legally deemed, quote, the truth. Given these rules and existing models, it is therefore likely that all digital assets would be similarly dematerialized, in this case, into a digital ledger, not for operational reasons likely to be a blockchain, with ownership rights attached in order to fulfill existing regulations. Just the beginning. The institutionalization of the digital asset trading environment is just the beginning. The next couple of years will determine whether we have an efficient unitary solution, such as for the bond markets, or for a more fragmented approach, such as exists with the FX markets. Quote, there will be a shift from crypto evangelism to capital market pragmatism. No, there won't. DBS, Standard Chartered, and Northern Trust have already launched in-home custody solutions, with the larger banks still considering their options. Should a group of 4 or 5 coalesce around a core infrastructure in 2021, the market is likely to develop more rapidly, and the high-frequency trading funds will drive volumes by many multiples. For the existing mainly retail exchanges such as Binance and Coinbase, catering to institutions will require a considerable transformation. The changes might rapidly overwhelm some of them, because their technologies are mostly unsuited to the behaviors of high-frequency traders. As the ratio of spot to derivatives is low, the cash-settled derivatives exchanges appear to have the most gain if they can become institutionally compliant, accessible, and cost-effective. There will be a shift from crypto evangelism to capital market pragmatism, and the anticipated mass adoption of blockchains will become more grounded in operational reality. Capital markets infrastructure will lead that realignment. No, he's full of shit. This guy doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. The only behavior that any entity can change about anyone is their own. A bank can decide that they want to utilize cryptocurrencies for their transfers. A government entity might decide that they want to facilitate their transfers using cryptocurrencies. Your next door neighbor might decide that they would like to conduct commerce in utilizing cryptocurrencies. This isn't a decision for somebody else to make for you. And it isn't something that somebody else's movement or change is necessarily going to impact yours. And I think this is one of the places where people like Mr. Phil here miss out on, is that a lot of them try to look at this space as though it is only Bitcoin. And they like to try to forget the history of this space where each and every one of these projects was probably birthed by somebody no more than 20 years of age, with no degrees, with no executive job, marshaling multi-billion-dollar market cap coins, and spitting memes all over Twitter. That's what birthed all this shit, and they want to try and forget it. I think that's probably the biggest mistake in anybody's perspective when it comes to cryptocurrencies, is this assumption that anything is concrete and that anything is secure from change. It's just not true, especially in this space. You know, money, everybody is motivated to get involved with money. And so the proposition of getting involved in managing your own money, you know, when you start doing it enough with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and you start understanding the differential between that and utilizing your Visa card, the more you're going to start looking at it and say, you know what, this coin is pretty cool, and this coin is pretty cool, and that coin's pretty cool, but like not all of them had the same features, and they don't all have the features that I want. So like, what if I was to take the attribute from this coin and the attribute from that coin and the attribute from that coin over there and put them all together into my own coin and launch that and tell my friends all about it. Say, hey, yo, check out my coin. And they do that. And say they like it more than Bitcoin, more than Monero, more than Litecoin. You know, and you're like, whoa, this is pretty cool. Tell your friends about it. Tell your friends' friends about it. And next thing you know, you'll be right up there on Bitcoin. You know, be right there nipping at their heels, right along with all the other cryptocurrencies out there. And that's really the reality behind this space, is that it's all based on software, and it's all based on your desire to get into it and what depth that you wish to go to. And because of that, people like Phil, they can draw up a nice little official institutional jerk-off space bullshit. But, you know, the reality is, you know, people like Phil, they don't live in a reality where there are hackers out there that are getting paid in Monero to do shit like hack into, what was that place, FireEye, and gather up all their tools. But that's the reality that we live in. That's now. That's here. You know, it's not just in everybody's interest that cryptocurrency remain the way that it is just on a retail end. But the more open that it can be, the better. Because all of that activity is exposed a lot easier. You know, you want to talk about things that will cause it to go further in the dark, well, talk about regulating it, talk about taxing it, talk about trying to institutionalize it. And what you're going to find is a market kickback, or like a what was it, blowback. There you go, blowback on it, where the market doesn't like your ideas. The market doesn't want to do what you want to do, and the market didn't get to do it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And as far as where to go here, I wanted to go with some Slayer. And so here we go. Gods and Death. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Textures with Denying Gravity. Or Defying Gravity? Yeah, Denying Gravity. Alright. So as far as what we got else on the grill, because I've been looking around, doing the digging, and I did find some good stuff, actually. I wanted to cover that, but maybe not. This! Oh my god! I want to get into this, because we've been talking about this for a very long time on the show. I've been making predictions concerning this, and it looks like it's starting to manifest. Now, how it will go further into the future, I cannot tell you. However, I believe at some point or another, contributing to the process of mining at all will create so much capability for economic activity and prosperity that your state or your city or just your locality might extend to you some sort of benefit to encourage you to mine. And I believe this is the start of it. This is on, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and read this bullet-pointed article, even though I hate bullet-pointed articles. And this is on CoinDesk, and it's by Danny Nelson, so yes, penis. Kentucky bill seeks to lure crypto miners with tax breaks. And this is authored on January 11th, 2021 at 2:54 p.m. PST. Two Kentucky lawmakers have called upon the Commonwealth to offer tax breaks to cryptocurrency miners seeking to tap into the energy-rich region. General Assembly Representatives Stephen Rudy and Chris Freeland's bill, introduced last week, would exempt commercial cryptocurrency miners from paying 6% sales tax or 6% excise taxes on their rigs, electric bills, and mining equipment. Kentucky has, quote, an opportunity to become a national leader in cryptocurrency mining because of low energy rates and abundant supply, said the bill. Tax breaks would help the Commonwealth further compete. The Republican lawmakers submitted their 13-page bill to the General Assembly on January 8th, where it now sits in committee. Neither representative responded to a request for comment. The bloc first reported on the bill's submission. So yeah, we're going to read this bill, because I think it's educational. And this is on apps.legislature.ky.gov. Unofficial copy, 21 RSBR 293, an act relating to the taxation of the commercial mining of cryptocurrency. Whereas the increased use of blockchain technology in a variety of applications and processes has led to significant innovation, developments, and modernization in multiple industries around the world, and whereas access to cost-effective energy is critical to the development and growth of blockchain technology, particularly in the commercial mining of cryptocurrency, which requires a substantial and constant supply of energy, and whereas the General Assembly has actively encouraged the use and growth of blockchain technology in the Commonwealth, as evidenced by the 2019 House Resolution 171, authorizing a comprehensive study on the growing use of blockchain technology and its economic development potential for a variety of businesses and industries, as well as the passage of 2020 Senate Bill 55, which enacted KRS 42747 and created a blockchain technology working group to study the use of blockchain in various sectors. And whereas the Commonwealth has an opportunity to become a national leader in the emerging industry of the commercial mining of cryptocurrency, given its abundant supply of electricity that can be provided at lower rates than most states, and its established infrastructure to provide such energy through the Tennessee Valley Authority and other electricity providers. And whereas it is necessary to clarify the General Assembly's original intention that Kentucky's tax code must and does recognize that the continuing development of new and advanced manufacturing and industrial processing technologies has led to new industrial processes, such as blockchain, used for commercial mining of cryptocurrency, which should and must be taxed in a manner similar to historical forms of manufacturing or industrial processing, in order to continue to encourage the location and expansion of such operations in the Commonwealth rather than in other states likewise competing for such business. Now, therefore, be it enacted by the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Section 1. A new section of KRS Chapter 139 is created to read as follows. 1. As used in this section, A. Blockchain technology means shared or distributed data structures or digital ledgers governed by consensus protocols and maintained by peer-to-peer networks that store digital transactions and verify and secure transactions cryptographically. Co-location facility means an industrial facility of not less than 200,000 square feet located in the Commonwealth that is utilized in the commercial mining of cryptocurrency or in the hosting persons engaged in the commercial mining of cryptocurrency through utilization of the facility's infrastructure, including servers and network hardware, powered by internet bandwidth, electricity, and other services generally required for such mining operations. C. Commercial mining of cryptocurrency means the process through which blockchain technology is used to mine cryptocurrency at a co-location facility. D. Consensus protocol means a set of rules and procedures that control how and when blockchain transactions are verified, validated, recorded, and recognized. Kinda, yeah, maybe. E. Cryptocurrency means a type of virtual currency that utilizes blockchain technology and, number 1, can be digitally traded between users, or number 2, can be converted or exchanged for legal tender. Those are not qualifications of what a cryptocurrency is. Continuing. F. Mine means the process through which blockchain transactions are verified and accepted by adding the transactions to a blockchain ledger, which involves solving complex mathematical cryptographic problems associated with a block containing transaction data. And E. Peer-to-peer networks has the same meaning as in KRS 42747. 2. The tax imposed by KRS 139.200 or 139.310 shall not apply to A. electricity used or consumed in the commercial mining of cryptocurrency, and B. tangible personal property directly used in the commercial mining of cryptocurrency, including all equipment necessary to mine, such as servers and computers, racks, power distribution units, transformers, cabling, switchgear, software and network equipment, and like items. 3. To qualify for the exemption provided in subsection 2 of this section, all of the following requirements shall be met. A. Each person seeking the exemption shall file an application for each location if the commercial mining of cryptocurrency takes place at more than one location. And B. The application shall be in the form prescribed by the department and shall include, number 1, the name and mailing address of the person seeking the exemption, number 2, a description of the person's business activities, number 3, the business location where the operations will be located, including the street address, city, and county, and number 4, any other information that the department may require. So, if they need to know what the color of your last turd was, you better fucking tell them. 4. If the application is approved by the department, A, the department shall issue a certificate which shall be effective as of the date of the application. The effective date of the application shall be, number 1, the postmark date if a paper application is filled, number 2, the date received at the department's office if an application is delivered in person, or number 3, the electronic timestamp of the email or website if filed using a computer, and B, the approved applicant shall report on the amounts of the tax exemption claimed in subsection 2 of this section from the date of the application to September 1st, 2021, or on or before November 1st, 2021, and for each fiscal year thereafter on or before each November 1st, as long as the exemption applies, meaning they intend to withdraw it at a later date. You know, you want to know the answer to this fucking thing? Number one, you do not establish your operations within the authority or the jurisdiction of the TVA. Number two, if you do, or, you know, actually you could be within the jurisdiction of the TVA or without it, as long as you are providing your own electricity or are willing to eat the cost on the miners and the electricity, which would be fine. You know, I mean, the fact of the matter is that all of these requirements that they're trying to impose on you are only if you bother to apply for the exemption. If you don't bother to apply for the exemption, you don't have to give them all this information. Continuing on. 5. The exemptions provided in subsection 2 of this section shall apply to applications made on or after July 1st, 2021, and on or before June 31st, 2025. 6. On or before January 1st, 2022, and on or before each January 1st thereafter, as long as the exemption applies, the Department shall report to the Interim Joint Committee on Appropriations and Revenue the total amount of tax exemption that has been claimed for the immediate preceding fiscal year and the total cumulative amount of the exemption claimed. Section 2. KRS 160-613 is amended to read as follows. Number 1. There is hereby authorized a utility gross receipts license tax for schools not to exceed 3% of the gross receipts derived from the furnishing within the district of utility services, except that, quote, gross receipts shall not include amounts received for furnishing. Let's see, that one's struck. Amounts received for furnishing is struck. Energy or energy-producing fuels to a person engaged in manufacturing or industrial processing as provided in subsection 3 or 4 of this section. If that person provides the utility services provider with a copy of its utility gross receipts license tax energy direct pay authorization as provided in subsection 3 of this section, and the utility service provider retains a copy of the authorization in its records, utility services which are to be resold, or, let's see here, C. Notwithstanding subsection 2 of this section, electricity used or consumed at a co-location facility in a commercial mining of cryptocurrency. Number 1, if the facility operator provides the utility services provider with a copy of its utility gross receipts license tax exemption certificate as authorized by subsection 6 of this section, and the utility service provider retains a copy of the exemption certificate in its records, or number 2, if the utility service provider is a governmental agency, the facility operator must retain the exemption certificate in its records. Number 2, if any user of the utility services purchases the utility services directly from any supplier who is exempt either by state or federal law from the utility gross receipts license tax, then the user of the utility services, if the tax has been levied in the user's school district, shall be liable for the tax and shall register and pay directly to the department in accordance with the provisions of KRS 160-615, the utility gross receipts license tax for schools computed by multiplying the gross cost of all utility services received by the tax rate levied under the provisions of this section. Number 3, a person engaged in manufacturing or industrial processing whose cost of energy or energy-producing fuels used in the course of manufacturing or industrial processing exceeds the amount equal to 3% of the cost of production may apply to the department for a utility gross receipts license tax energy direct pay authorization. Cost of production shall be computed on the basis of a plant facility which shall include all operations within the continuous, unbroken, integrated manufacturing or processing production process that ends with a product packaged and ready for sale. If the person receives confirmation of eligibility from the department, the person shall A. Provide the utility services provider with a copy of the utility gross receipts, license, tax, energy direct pay authorization issued by the department for all purchases of energy and energy-producing fuels, and report and pay directly to the department in accordance with the provisions of KRS 16615, the utility gross receipts, license, tax due. 4. A person who performs a manufacturing or industrial processing activity for a fee and does not take ownership of the tangible personal property that is incorporated into or becomes the product of the manufacturing or industrial processing activity is a toller. For periods on or after July 1st, 2018, the cost of the tangible personal property shall be excluded from the toller's cost of production at a plant facility with tolling operations in place as of July 1st, 2018. I'm trying to find the meaning here. Anyway, continuing. 5. For plant facilities that begin tolling operations after July 1st, 2018, the costs of tangible personal property shall be excluded from the toller's cost of production if the toller A. maintains a binding contract for periods after July 1st, 2018 that governs the terms, conditions, and responsibilities with a separate legal entity which holds title to the tangible personal property that is incorporated into or becomes the product of the manufacturing or industrial process activity. B. Maintains accounting records that show the expenses it incurs to fulfill the binding contract that include, but are not limited to, energy or energy-producing fuels, materials, labor, procurement, depreciation, maintenance, taxes, administration, and office expenses. C. Maintains separate payroll, bank accounts, tax returns, and other records that demonstrate its independent operations and the performance of its tolling responsibilities. D. Demonstrates one or more substantial business purposes for the tolling operations germane to the overall manufacturing, industrial processing activities, or corporate structure at the plant facility. A business purpose is a purpose other than the reduction of utility gross receipts, license, tax liability for the purchases of energy and energy-producing fuels, and E. Provides information to the department upon request that documents fulfillment of the requirements in paragraphs A to D of the subsection, and gives an overview of its tolling operations with an explanation of how the tolling operations relate and connect with all other manufacturing or industrial process activities occurring at the plant facility. What page are we on? Oh, we're on 7 of 13 right now. Yeah, we'll make it. Well, let's see here. 6. The operator of a co-location facility primarily engaged in the commercial mining of cryptocurrency may apply to the department for a utility gross receipts license tax exemption certificate. If the operator receives confirmation of eligibility from the department, it, A, shall provide the utility services provider with a copy of the utility gross receipts license tax exemption certificate issued by the department for all purchases of electricity, or B, keep the certificate on file if the utility service provider is a government agency. Let's see. Section 3, KRS 16131 is amended to read as follows: as used in KRS 16613 to 16617. Number 1, department means Department of Revenue. 2, communication service means the provision, transmission, conveyance, or routing for consideration of voice data voice, data, video, or any other information signals of the purchaser's choosing to a point or between or among points specified by the purchaser by or through any electronic, radio, light, fiber optic, or similar medium or method now in existence or later devised. A. Communication service includes, but is not limited to, number 1, local and long-distance phone services, number 2, telegraph and typewriter services, number 3, postpaid calling services, 4, private communication services involving a direct channel specifically dedicated to a customer's use between specific points, 5, channel services involving a path of communications between two or more points. 6. Data transport services involving the movement of encoded information between points by means of any electronic, radio, or other medium or method. 7. Caller ID services, ringtones, voicemail, and other electronic messaging services. 8. Mobile wireless telecommunications service and fixed wireless service as defined in KRS 139-195, and 9. Voice over Internet Protocol, VoIP. B. Communication service does not include any of the following if the charges are separately itemized on the bill provided to the purchaser. Number 1, information services. Number 2, internet access as defined in 47 U.S.C. Section 151. Number 3, installation, reinstallation, or maintenance of wiring or equipment on a customer's premises. The exclusion does not apply to any charge attributable to the connection, movement, change, or termination of a communication service. 4, the sale of directory and other advertising and listing services. 5, billing and collection services provided to another communication service provider. Number 6, cable service, satellite broadcast, satellite master antenna television, wireless cable service, including direct-to-home satellite service as defined in Section 602 of the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996, and Internet Protocol television provided through wireline facilities without regard to delivery technology. 7, the sale of communication service to a communications provider that is buying the communication service for the sale or incorporation into communication services for sale, including A. carrier access charges excluding user access fees, B. right of access charges, C. interconnection charges paid by the provider of mobile telecommunications services or other communications providers, D. charges for the sale of unbundled network elements as defined in 47 U.S.C. Section 153(29) on January 1, 2001, to which access is provided on an unbundled basis in accordance with 47 U.S.C. Section 251, subsection C, subsection 3, and E. charges for use of facilities for providing or receiving communication service. 8. The sale of communication services provided to the public by means of a payphone. 9. Prepaid calling services and prepaid wireless calling service. 10. Interstate telephone service if the interstate charge is separately itemized for each call. And 11. If the interstate calls are not itemized, the portion of telephone charges identified and set out on the customer's bill as interstate and supported by the provider's books and records. 3. Gross costs means the total cost of utility services, including the cost of the tangible personal property and any services associated with obtaining the utility services, regardless of whom purchased or from whom purchased. 4. Gross receipts means all amounts received in money, credits, property, or other money's worth in any form as consideration for the furnishing of utility services. That might apply to cryptocurrencies. 5. Utility services means the furnishing of communication services electric power, water and natural, artificial and mixed gas. 6. Cable service has the same meaning as KRS 136.602. 7. Satellite broadcast and wireless cable service has the same meaning as in KRS 136.602. 8. Ringtones has the same meaning as in KRS 136.602. 9. Multi-channel video programming service has the same meaning as in KRS 136.602. 10. Industrial processing has the same meaning as in KRS 139.010. 9. Manufacturing has the same meaning as in KRS 139.10, or 010 rather. And 12. Plant facility has the same meaning as in KRS 139.010. 13. Commercial mining of cryptocurrency has the same meaning as in Section 1 of this Act. And 14. Colocation facility has the same meaning as in Section 1 of this Act. Section 4, KRS 139.190 is amended to read as follows. No present or former commissioner or employee of the department, present or former member of a county board of assessment appeals, present or former property valuation administrator or employee, present or former secretary or employee of the finance and administration cabinet, former secretary or employee of the revenue cabinet, or any other person shall intentionally and without authorization inspect or divulge any information acquired by him of the affairs of any person, or information regarding the tax schedules, returns, or reports required to be filed with the department or other proper officer, or any information produced by a hearing or investigation insofar as the information may have to do with the affairs of the person's business. Number 2. The prohibitions established by subsection 1 of this section shall not extend to a. Information required in prosecutions for making false reports or returns of property for taxation or any other infraction of the tax laws. B. Any matter properly entered upon any assessment record or in any way made a matter of public record. C. Furnishing any taxpayer or his properly authorized agent with information respecting his own return. D. Testimony provided by the commissioner or any employee of the department in any court, or the introduction as evidence of returns or reports filed with the department in an action for violation of state or federal tax laws, or in any action challenging the state or federal tax laws. E. Providing an owner of unmined coal, oil, or gas reserves and or mineral or energy resources assessed under KRS 132.820 or owners of surface land under which the unmined minerals lie, factual information about the owner's property derived from third-party returns filed for that owner's property under the provisions of KRS 132.820 that is used to determine the owner's assessment. This information shall be provided to the owner on a confidential basis, and the owner shall be subject to the penalties provided in KRS 131.992, or subsection 2 rather. The third-party filer shall be given prior notice of any disclosure of information to the owner that was provided by the third-party filer. F. Providing to a third-party purchaser pursuant to an order entered in a foreclosure action filed in a court of competent jurisdiction, factual information related to the owner or lessee of coal, oil, gas reserves, or any other mineral resources assessed under KRS 132.820, the Department may promulgate an administrative regulation establishing a fee schedule for the provision of the information described in this paragraph. Any fee imposed shall not exceed the greater of the actual cost of providing the information, or $10. G. Providing information to a licensing agency, the Transportation Cabinet, or the Kentucky Supreme Court under KRS 131-1817. B. Statistics of gasoline and special fuels gallonage reported to the Department under KRS 138.210 to 138.448. I. Providing any utility gross receipts license tax return information that is necessary to administer the provisions of KRS 166.13 to 166.17 to applicable school districts on a confidential basis. J. Providing documents, data, or other information to a third party pursuant to an order issued by a court of competent jurisdiction. Or K. Providing information to the Legislative Research Commissioner under Section 1 of this Act for the provisions of the sales and use tax exemption on the commercial mining of cryptocurrency. 139.519 for the purposes of sales and use tax refund on building materials used for disaster recovery. 141.436 for purposes of the energy efficiency products credits. 141.437 for purposes of the Energy Star Home and the Energy Star manufactured home credits. 148.544 for the purposes of the film industry incentives. 154.26-095 for purposes of the Kentucky Industrial Revitalization tax credits and the job assessment fees. 141.068 for purposes of the Kentucky Investment Fund. 141.396 for purposes of the Angel Investor tax credit. 141.389 for purposes of the Distilled Spirits credit. 141.408 for the purposes of inventory credit. 141.390 for purposes of recycling and composting credit. 141.3841 for the purposes of selling farmer tax credit, and 141.4231 for the purposes of the renewable chemical production tax credit. 3. The Commissioners shall make available any information for official use only and on a confidential basis to the proper officer, agency, board, or commission of the state, any Kentucky county, any Kentucky city, any other state, or the federal government under reciprocal agreements whereby the Department shall receive similar or useful information in return. 4. Access to and inspection of information received from the Internal Revenue Service is for Department use only and is restricted to tax administration purposes. Information received from the Internal Revenue Service shall not be made available to any other agency of state government or any county, city, or other state, and shall not be inspected intentionally and without authorization by any present secretary or employee of the Finance and Administration Cabinet, commissioner, or employee of the Department, or any other person. 5. Statistics of crude oil as reported to the Department of Revenue under the crude oil excise tax requirements of KRS Chapter 137, and the statistics of natural gas production as reported to the Department of Revenue under the Natural Resources Severance Tax requirements of KRS Chapter 143A may be made public by the Department by release to the Energy and Environmental Cabinet, or Environment Cabinet, Department for Natural Resources. Notwithstanding any provision of law to the contrary, beginning with the with mind map submissions for the 1989 tax year, the department may make public or divulge any of those portions of mind maps submitted by taxpayers to the department pursuant to KRS Chapter 132 for ad valorem tax purposes that depict the boundaries of mined-out parcel areas. The electronic maps shall not be relied upon to determine actual boundaries of mined-out parcel areas. Property boundaries contained in mind maps required under KRS Chapters 350 and 352 shall not be construed to constitute land surveying or boundary surveys as defined in KRS 322.010 and any administrative regulations promulgated thereto. This act takes effect July 1st, 2021. And we are finished! Oh, man. Well, it seems like they're trying to draw up some sort of regulatory framework whereby your mining efforts will be taxed. Now, like I said before, I think the best way to avoid this shit, number one is to avoid going industrial. So like find a level of production that you're both happy with and can maintain yourself, or maybe with the assistance of one or two others, and just keep it small. I really believe that in the not so distant future we are going to see tactical strikes on mining activity. If we have, that's assuming, of course, that we haven't already. But in the event that we have not, I do anticipate that at some point in the future, really big mining operations are going to be strategic targets to hit. And so that's one of the reasons why I think trying to encourage small miners is a good thing. Because it enriches the network itself for it to have nodes just widely distributed and thoroughly distributed. Having significant penetration into all of the areas where there are nodes. And I think in the longer term, that's actually going to be serving the majority of us, is to have a really wide and diverse constituency running your network. It helps to have people with different interest values, because they evaluate against one another and they find out really quick which is a more successful strategy. But like I said, I think that big mining operations, again, if you can see it from space, or if you can track it from space readily, chances are it's too big and that it'll become a target of somebody. But that's just my feeling. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music now that we managed to get through that big mamma jamma. And as far as where to go, I've been wanting to play some Voivod, and we just have not gotten to it yet. And so I think this one is appropriate. Event Horizon here on Coin Metal. And that was Irreversible Mechanism with Immersion. Or actually, I think that was Beyond. Sorry. Anyway, it is with that I'd like to bring this episode to a close. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want you all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And as far as our last dance is concerned, I actually got one picked out here. And so here it is. Meshuggah, New Millennium, Cyanide Christ. Last dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. Good night.